Welcome to the CDHouston Leadership Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about 10 things or 10 skills that you will need once you get out of the military. And yes, this is going to be a military-friendly video because I'm sitting here with my friend Gerald Bridges, and we've known each other for a long time, but we'll get into that later. So when you're in the military and it's time for you to get out of the military, there are some things that you need to know. First thing you need to know is you need to have emotional intelligence, because I can tell you one thing: civilian conflict is rarely direct, right? And when you're in the military, you get used to if someone says something to you, you'll go back at them, right? And sometimes that doesn't work the same way in the civilian workforce. I can tell you from my experience, and I know you guys aren't gonna believe this, but I used to curse a little bit. And that worked in the military, believe it or not, because that's kind of the way we did things. But that did not work once I got out of the military. So I had to learn that. That's just part of the emotional intelligence. How you speak, your tone, sometimes you have to be quiet sometimes and just wait. So Gerald, you tell me, what do you think about when we talk about emotional intelligence and having that skill once you get out of the military?
Hey, Chris, thank you for having me, man. You know, we've been friends almost, 40 years, 30 years? You know, so I think I retired in 2026, so it's almost 20 years since I retired.
Yep.
So, you know, we met each other in 87.
Yep.
So it's been a long time coming. Good to see you. Thank you. Always glad to talk to you, man. So,
oh, yeah.
Man, so emotion, you know, this thing, 20 years out, 20 years I retired. I mean, wow, I thought I would never be that guy, the old guy.
Right.
But, you know, on that journey, you know, the emotional intelligence journey was real for me. And not just me, probably a lot of veterans also. So the one thing I remember is when I retired and I was a contractor. Mm-hmm. And I was, you know, let's go. You know, hey, you know, if it ain't my way, you know, I know the way to do it. But like you said, you know, if people disagree with me, I was ready. Let's defend my way. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
But I had to learn again. I had to learn that self-awareness. I had to learn my breathing techniques, and I had to listen. You know, I mean, not just listen, but be an active listener.
Oh yeah.
So those kind of things. I mean, they were the difference between success and failure. Because, you know, I got called in a couple times about, hey, Mr. Bridges, you're not in the military anymore. Can't talk to people like that. But one of the things that, you know, or the company I have now is bridgingpassions.com. And, you know, we do transformation when people at the edge, you know, trying to teach people, hey, when that transformation comes, the chaos that it builds. And part of that is learning, you know, the self-awareness. And so Viktor Frankl, a famous German psychiatrist, he was in the Holocaust, he was in the camps. And one of the things he came up, one of his quotes, he said that, you know, between stimulus and response is growth. Mm-hmm. And and every time, you know, that takes me back to those times where I had to learn that, look, just because they say it, I don't have to respond. So, and it took time to learn that. I mean, I knew it, and, you know, but that you get that feeling that's bubbled up inside of you.
Right.
And you like, I got to get it out. But right. Like you said, Chris, that emotional intelligence is key to transitioning from the military to civilian, because, you know, in my shop or your shop or what we call in the military, our shop, hey, you say something, you're gonna get it right back.
Right.
And but that's how we communicated, and we just went on. So yeah, that emotional intelligence is definitely a keystone to success or in the transitioning from military to civilian.
How could a person work on that before they got out of the military?
So that's a good question, Chris. So, you know, statistics show that, you know, people are born with that IQ, and you have a certain IQ and you can't change it. Mm-hmm. But the good thing about emotional intelligence, your score can change.
Right.
There are emotional intelligence tests you can take, so it can change. And it changes by working on those skills. Again, how you do it, it's got to be intentional. And those are the building blocks of some of the stuff that we're going to talk about today. For example, let's get specific. Journaling.
Okay.
Exercise. Breathing. Talking to yourself. Basically realizing who you are. And again, just listening. So taking those things and doing them daily and building upon those, building good habits, taking a deep breath before you respond. And I think we talked about it in some of the classes we taught with Durham County is, don't send the first email,
Right.
Put an address, and I relate it to Amazon shopping. We all love Amazon shopping. And, you see it. So I've learned to put it in my basket first, then come back 24 hours and see if I still need it.
Oh, yeah.
Because, so those, I joke, but those type of habits, you build on them and they get easier and easier and easier as you go along. So those type of habits and tools that you use before you get out will help you when you get into those situations.
Perfect. So the next thing we're going to talk about, another skill that you need, and it's kind of like we're going to talk about it now, but it's going to come back on us in the end as well, but networking, right? When you get out of the military, networking is, I can't say how important it is. There's a statistic that says 70% of civilian jobs are filled through relationships, not applications. And that is so true. I remember I was working for TSA and, excuse me, and we had a little, they call it a realignment. And my job was safe, but I didn't feel safe. So what I did was I called a friend of mine. He worked at Caesars. And I said, hey, something's going on over here. I just want to know how the job market is. And he was like, oh, you looking for a position? Because I can give your name to my director. And gave me her number. I called her, sent my resume to her. She called me back 2 days later and said, hey, let's have an interview. She interviewed me for 5 minutes and said, well, I looked at your resume, you come highly recommended. So when can you start? And that's just one way. It's a little bit different, with networking once you get out. You have to be able to do that. And that's another skill that you can start that before you get out as well. You can start that by networking with civilians, people who are already working in the workforce. You could network with them to see how is it, how do things work. Let them know what you do. Let them look at you as a person of integrity, a person of character, because that's really what they're looking for. It's not all about, sometimes they say, it's who you know, but it's more like who knows you and who knows your work. So what do you think about networking, Gerald?
So I think, I don't know who said it, but I think somebody said, they don't know who you are until you open your mouth.
Right.
So when we come out of the military, we are already loaded with valuable skills, just invaluable skills. Just the teamwork, the leadership, the training, the taking care of your health. We're loaded. So when we come out of the military, if people can't understand that automatically, they can't understand what we have. So you need a network to help you bridge that gap to what you have inside you to make sure other people understand your value. So that network begins in the military. You have people of all ranks, all careers that you network with, not just in your AFSC. I'll show my age. So right. You have to branch out and get to know those people. Now, one thing I will also say is that find a mentor. Find a mentor, and a mentor is someone that's in your field, whatever field you decide to go, and talk to them. And that should be in a civilian field that you want. Now, that person may be military primary, but may not be. But it's critical that you find a mentor, because that's going to be your path. Because a mentor is someone that you want to emulate.
Correct.
Another thing is find a coach. Okay? And that coach will help you reach out and find that network that you belong to or that you want to belong to. So again, networking, people say nepotism is not real. Oh, it's real. and it's not fair, but it's real. But it depends on who you know. So how do you get to know people? You go out, you join professional organizations. You when you go to your class, or you get in your education, preparing to go to the next level, your classmates, because most of the time you go into a local university and you don't know who you're going to touch, and your civic organizations, churches, you don't know who is watching you, but people know we're in the military. Right. You can walk down the street, that's a military man, that's a military woman. They know.
Right.
And sometimes we are oblivious to it, but opening ourselves up to have a conversation that'll build that network, which is critical.
No, you're absolutely correct. I agree with everything you said, especially, and it's a good segue to the next point, which talks about education. And it talks about education and certification. So point 3, that's what we're going to talk about. Your military training has an expiration date. Civilian credentials renew your relevance and your resume. So you want to, before you get out, a good skill to have is a skill. So whatever you did in the military, hopefully it was something that translates to a civilian equivalent job. And I'm not going to get into all the career fields that translate, but a couple of career fields that translate 100%. Almost all of the medical field translate 100%. If you were a dentist, or if you worked in a dental part of the military, you can translate that. X-rays, doctors, lawyers, engineers, IT. A lot of the technical career fields, they have to follow the same rules as the civilian side.
Good point.
Right. So getting that education is, I got my associate's degrees, my bachelor's degree, and my first master's degree before I got out of the military. And I did that so that I could be prepared for the civilian life. And that, along with the networking put together, yes, it made my job hunting a lot easier.
Right.
So Gerald, I know you have a lot of education as well. Tell me about your education and how you feel about this.
So my story is a little different about education. Not my feeling about education, but Chris and I had a meeting yesterday with my alumni at North Carolina Central University. And Chris, you said something that stuck. You were like, "Well, I'm the only one in the room that I didn't get my education until you were what 32,
yeah,
32."
Yeah, I started at 30.
But again, and the young lady came back and said that just showed your determination and your skill. And I say that to say, I was not a good student in college. And I just didn't take education that seriously. And when I went into the military, I still didn't get I didn't go as far as I could in education. My mindset was just not there. But I tell you what, as soon as I got out in that civilian sector and I was a contractor, I was reminded by my salary that you're going to only go so far with a bachelor's degree. I said, okay, because back then a bachelor's degree was okay. You were okay.
Yeah.
So I had I came out of the military with a wealth of, like we're saying, we had tools, we got skills, we know how to be there on time, we can depend on us, we ain't gonna take no sick days.
Yeah.
But they said, okay, we can only pay you X amount of money. I said, whoa, what about my experience? But you only got this degree. So, and I think they used that to lowball me, but it was something, a situation that I could have avoided by the education. So the education bug reunited in me when I was in software development with the government. I went into not software, information systems management. I working for a contractor, and we were developing a system for U.S. Transcom. And so I was in a room with developers, and they were talking way over my head, and I got upset. So I said, well, what do you do? I went back to school. So I went and got my first master's in information systems management. And that was just because, hey, I got tired of people telling me I didn't know what I was talking about, which I didn't. So anyway, I got that. Then I went back and got the second master's in management and leadership. So Chris, the education is critical. It's critical because not only does it prepare you for the job or negotiating for salary, because people will use it for you and against you. But what it does, it gives you a whole different outlook on life. It just makes you think. It changes your mindset,
Correct.
like you said. So education is key, and even the certifications. Now the certifications. And people say, well, it's not the only path. You don't have to spend all that money for education. But again, we're talking to veterans. You have ways to get
Right.
that education paid for, your certifications. And, the VA is a good source. And, I may think we might mention that later. There are sources for you. But again, back to your point, Chris, the education, the certification piece is critical for your next, your path in civilian sector.
Right. And I have a daughter that's in college right now, and yeah, that's one of the hardest things, to make sure I explain education to her in a way that it's not just about right now, it's about the future.
Oh yeah.
Having it now makes it easier in the future later.
Oh, yeah.
So next, here's the thing that both of us have, and we can talk about this all day, is information technology skills.
Oh yeah.
And I gotta throw AI in there now. I used to just say you need just a few IT skills, but
Right.
AI has changed the game.
Game changer.
AI is the new literacy. The people who use it well will outwork the people who don't every time. I was on a call this morning with my son. He's in cybersecurity, and we were talking, and he says, Dad, he was telling me about, it's this database that what they do is they collect all of the data from all of the reports. And he has to go through those reports and pick out things that don't look right, basically. Right? And he was like, yeah, Dad. He said, well, what I'm going to put together is I'm going to put together a system where all these reports can be dumped into AI, and then I can write a prompt to say, go in there. If you see this more than twice for the same person, flag it.
Okay.
Right. And he said, I'm going to present that today at work.
Oh, good. CJ, yeah.
That's what I mean by AI has changed the game. Because let's say if you don't know how to write that prompt,
Right.
then you still have to do the job. So you still have to go through the reports and maybe, oh, that's a violation, put that to the side. Oh, that's a violation, put that to the side, right? You still have to do that. But something that might take you 2 or 3 hours, now it's going to take him 15 minutes.
Right.
Max, right? If that. So, and he said, Dad, what do you think they're going to do when I present this? I said, you'll see. They're gonna love you, and they're gonna love that system. And your counterparts, they're gonna have to step it up if they're not doing it.
Right.
So when it comes to information technology and AI skills, Gerald, what do you say to that?
Well, before I go, Chris, let's well, good for CJ. So that's your mini me. So yeah, he takes out his dad. So that I don't expect anything less from CJ to come up with something like that. But we talked about yesterday, Chris, in our meeting. I think you mentioned it, or somebody else mentioned it, that you don't have to be IT to know AI to know that AI is going to be critical.
Correct.
So even if I think we talk about nursing, we talked about any other field. Teachers. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Exactly the point. AI is here, and it's here to stay. Now, should we use AI to stop thinking? No. AI, to me, is a tool to enhance what you're thinking, because you can't always take it. You can't take it, for granted. You have to QC it. You have to understand it. So. Mm-hmm. Understanding AI, like if you don't understand it, if you're afraid of, you're already behind, because it's here to stay.
Yep.
But what I would say is that don't depend on AI for your total thought process. You have to have some critical thinking on your own. Let AI enhance your critical thinking, because if you, and I know this happens a lot, if you depend on AI and don't read it and present something and people call you out on it, say, hey, did you write this? And so you have to be able to defend it. Mm-hmm. So, for example, this is way out. I'm not going to do a resume, have AI do me a resume for an engineer, and then I go to an interview and I'm not an engineer. I know that's kind of a red herring or way out there. But the point I'm trying to make is that embrace it, utilize it, integrate it into your daily life, and especially your job. For example, have AI look at your resume before you go, into interview. Have AI look at the possible career paths for your specific tool, your specific career in the military, and how it translates to your civilian career.
Right.
I mean, we were talking earlier before we came on air. It was a book. We had a book. And the book, you had to look up your AFSC and then it translated all. But you can use AI to get those skills that translate from military to civilian.
Right.
So,
right. And that AFSC, that's your job skill number.
Correct.
Right. For those of you out there who may not have been in the military.
Yeah. This is for military.
Right.
But it's for veterans.
So the next thing, let's talk about this. And of course, you're going to talk about this probably more than me because you have more insights into talking to people about their why, right? Yeah. And understanding their why and talking them through different things. I can do it, but it's a skill that I'm developing. Right. And I know that you have that skill inherently. So for me, I guess you can call it a why. I had a why when I first went in the military, and that why was retirement check.
Yeah. Or a monthly check.
Right. So in the 10th grade, a friend of mine, we sat down and talked, and I was like, man, I'm going in the military. Because I had heard a friend of my brother's say, you can get a retirement check after 20 years. And I was like, man. Now, I'm not saying that should be somebody else's why. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that was my why to keep going in the military. And it served me well. But the point I'm trying to make is whatever your why is, if you stick to it, a lot of other things will be easy. Because if you're doing your why, things will come up and you'll say, yeah, that's terrible, or I don't really like this situation, but my why is going to continue to drive me to the final goal.
Amen. Yep.
Because the journey, right, is what you should be looking at, not so much the destination. Now, once you get to the destination, of course, you're going to create another why. But for me, that was my why in the military that got me through. And now I've had other whys. Right now, my why for this podcast and for doing this is I really want to be able to help my grandkids with college. Luckily, they're young, so I got a long time to save up some money to help them with college. And I'm not saying I'm paying for any college.
That sounds commitment.
I know I'm recording this. So I didn't say, hey,
Grandpa, you said
for everybody's college. Right. I said for the ones that want to go to college, I want to be able to help a little bit, as much as I can.
Right.
And I think by me and Diana starting this business and working with you, in your business and partnering, and like you said, we're here in Durham teaching or going to a graduation where we taught some of the students. That's my why right now, to continue to learn and continue to build what I've already built. Now for you, tell me about, what do you think about maybe your why, and then how do you open that door for somebody else or let them know how important it is?
Right. So, so when we started the podcast, we were talking about the skills you need. And one of them we listed was knowing your why. And one of the things that we talked about was the why. The military gave us our why.
Correct.
Every day we knew why we were there. We knew why we had to go shovel snow. You remember you had to know why you was on the snowmobile. But we knew our why. And we were okay with it. We were asked to do things that, we didn't ask why. We said go. I can remember sitting at my desk and they said, hey, you have to go to deploy because we had a reclaimer. We had someone who couldn't stay, so you had to go. It wasn't why, it was when.
Right.
So, and it made us who we are. As far as I think I use the term institutionalized, but not as a bad term. You know, hey, we didn't ask why, we go. So, and now transitioning to the civilian sector, where's our why? So that's where I come in now with Bridging Passions, is that helping veterans understand it, not just veterans, but everybody, but today we're talking about veterans, understand your why. I mean, Simon Sinek had a book, you know, it starts with your why.
Correct.
And so why are we here? You know, why are you here? What is your purpose? Basically, what is your purpose? And it's difficult sometimes to realize that purpose, because the military always gave you one. So now we roll it back to building those skills to understand who you are, the self-awareness, the reflection, the self-reflection, the sitting down and the plotting out your career. I think you said it starts before the why. It starts in planning. So you will know your why as you transgress through the other side. So building that why is very important, and it's difficult, but you need help. And again, it goes back, get a mentor. And they won't be able to give you your why. What they'll do is help you discover your why, because you already have it in you. You have your why, you know, why you doing things, the podcast. I have my why. My why is I want to be able to fulfill another purpose, to give back. I want to give back. And when I say give back, is helping people realize their potential, because my position is that we're all leaders inside of us. And my job is to hold up a mirror and say, hey, Chris, man, you got it. And just direct you and look, say, oh, and then you say, oh, that's been my why all the time. I'm not giving you your why. It's already inside you. Right. But sometimes we need people to help us, guide us, and remind us that, hey, yeah, you're a fantastic person. You're smart. You're intelligent. You're smart. You're dedicated. So understanding that why is very important as far as moving on to your next level. Now, one of the other phrases I use with a lot of people, Chris, is the acronym. I use it as an acronym, but it's not God. And you know, because knowing your God is also helping you know your why. So I use it as given opportunities daily. So if you go out and you search for that why every day, those opportunities will come to you. And that's the benefit of knowing your why. And again, in the military, we're told our why, and it's easy. But transitioning from the military to civilian, we have to find our own why. And we find that by building those skills before you get out of the military. And even after you get out of the military, you can still find the resources to help you understand your why.
That's good. That's good. I like the way I like that acronym. You know, and it's funny because I heard an acronym before called POUR, passing over opportunities routinely. Yeah. Right? So, man, if you say, don't be poor, find God.
There you go. There you go. There you
we
go.
should copyright that.
There you go. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
You know, so, but no, that was good. Next, let's talk about your resume. Your resume writing. And I know everybody's going to say, all right, we could just skip this part because I'm just going to let Claude do my resume.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm talking about. Do something that's to the point where you feel good about putting it on your resume. Think about things that you can do at your job now or while you're in the military, whatever you're doing. Think about the projects that you're working on. And don't just be the person that's on the project. Try to be the person that's leading the project. Right? You want to be that, you want to put a lot of stuff in your resume. And yeah, there's nothing wrong with having AI kind of massage some of the words. But here's the thing, you actually did that. Making it sound good is fine. But you don't want to have AI just elaborate to the point where you didn't actually do all of that. Right? If you're on a project and you're the project manager in charge of everything, okay, that's one thing. If you just did one little piece of the project, if you're putting a dining room table together and you open the box, yeah, you're part of the project. But if that's all you did, Say that's all you did. Don't say you put the legs on and you made sure everything was level. And don't say that, because you didn't do that. And that's where your resume, and because like I said, we're not going to get into exactly how to write your resume, and you can figure that out.
Right.
But what I will say is, think about what you're doing right now to add to your resume.
Mm-hmm.
Give me an example. I'm still working in a W-2 job right now, which is, I'm always probably gonna be working because that's just the way I am. But what we're sitting over here doing right now, this is a skill. Putting this together and sitting here talking to you on this podcast and making sure that lighting is correct and making sure this is another skill I never thought that I would have.
Right.
I never even thought about picking up this skill. But over the past 2020, so 6 years, I've been working on technology. I got into not so much podcasts, but understanding cameras and understanding lighting. I got into that because I was in a high level job and I wasn't doing anything technical. And I needed to find something technical to keep my brain focused on that technical stuff. So I just started messing around with cameras and photography and videography, not to make any money, just to hone my skills. But I could put that on a resume.
Absolutely.
Right? So think about it like that. And this is to all the people out there. That's what I would tell them.
Right.
So what do you think about resume and even LinkedIn? I didn't really mention LinkedIn, but that's something else too.
Yeah. So when was the last time you read a bad resume? So you and I, Chris, both have sat on hiring boards and hiring panels. We read hundreds and hundreds of resumes, and we know the ones that were just saying things, and saying, "Hey, I was this, I was that." But when you get to the resumes that show results, they show action, then they show results. Those are the ones you look for. Those are the ones that catch your attention. That you dive deep into because they're telling you a story. So what I would say about resumes is that be authentic. Use AI to help pull out the things that you actually did. Use AI. So like you said, if you were head of a project, then use that to pull that out and put those results on paper, and put those on your resume. Because every one of the things people were saying, hey, just use your job description. No, because everybody has a job description.
Right.
Or specifically for USA Jobs, they used to say, because USA Jobs just changed it to a 2-page format, but before people were just copy and pasting the PD into them. I'm like, no, because you would get so many of those.
Right.
So your resume is important because it speaks to who you are. So when you're reading a resume, I imagine that person that I'm reading. And if you don't tell me who you are, then I'm reading 15 resumes. So how is your resume going to stick out to grab that hiring manager and say, hey, I'm the one that's, that you need to look further. I'm the one you need to interview. All right. Because we're not going to interview 100 applicants.
Right.
We have a matrix, of course, and we score it fairly, but we're not going to score you as high if it's just a plain resume. So what my advice too is, take your time on your resume. It speaks to who you are. Have different versions of your resume. Work your resume. When I say work your resume, if you have a particular resume and you submit for a job and you don't get anything back, change your resume because you're not telling the story.
Right.
It's not a failure. It's just not telling the correct story. So, and because your resume, be proud of what you did. It goes back to what we're saying. We are a unicorn. The veterans are unicorns. You won't find that type of experience in a 4-year college. And I can say that because me and you and I, we got education, so we're not down in education.
Right.
But you won't get that kind of education in college that we have. So say it, but say it smartly.
Right.
Say it correctly and efficiently. So.
Right. And that is, I definitely agree with that. Right. Because that's a good segue into the next point. And it talks about interviewing without the uniform. Because when you interview, whatever you put in that resume, you're going to get asked about it.
Yeah.
And I tell people the way I answer questions is, and this is just something that I learned along the way, and they kind of teach it in a lot of different classes too. Situation, action, outcome. That's what they teach you. What was the situation? What was the action?
There you go.
And then what was the outcome? Now you want that outcome to be, hey, the outcome was positive. Sometimes it's negative or whatever, but at least you told the story of what happened.
Right.
But here's what I did, Gerald. I added a last little piece, and it's impact.
Right.
Situation, action, outcome, and then impact. So this was the outcome. Yes, we got the job done on time, on budget, over. But here's the impact, right? That allowed X, Y, and Z to happen in the future. Right. So if you can explain something like that in an interview, and the only way you can explain it like that is if you've done it.
Right.
Because you can't make that up in an interview that quick. Right. Because you don't know the exact way they're going to ask the question. So that's the way I feel about interviewing without the uniform. Also, that tell me about yourself is not a biography.
Right.
You know, that's more of a, hey, and you know, they don't even do that a lot anymore anyway, because it's not that they don't want to know about you. They might want to know about you last. They want to know about what you did first. So tell me, Joe, what do you think about interviewing without the uniform?
So, Chris, there's different types of interviews. I mean, you and I both have interviewed for executive jobs, so those are totally different.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, they give you the questions 15 minutes before the interview, and you got to be ready.
Right.
Because that's what is expected of you. And yeah, I didn't get all those jobs.
Right.
But the interview process for me at this point is I am selling myself. I'm like, hey, here I am. My credentials speak for themselves, but I have to articulate it.
There you go.
And knowing how to articulate it and being confident is key. Interviewing is a skill, and you have to work on it. One of the things I'm proud of is that one of my previous organization, I used to have practice interviews with my team. Even before they weren't getting a job, I'm like, we're gonna teach you how to interview. And I was the interviewer from hell. So, but I took it to the extreme just to put them on a little pressure. But then one of my mentees, he came back, he got a job. He said, Mr. Bridges, what you gave us was way more than they gave us. And it made it easier for them. So again, it's a skill set as far as answering questions, looking people in the eye, breathing, and preparing. And you have to prepare for that, and we said we was going to segue to this under this topic is dress. You have to dress for the interview, knowing how to dress. Coming out of the military, like you got to know what shirt and tie to wear, not make sure it's not brand new. Don't go out and get some brand new shoes. Or you never wore a tie before, because we all didn't have that in the military. So I suggest you go and wear a tie a couple of days prior so you'll feel comfortable, or a week prior. Try it on, walk around, with a suit on. If you have the suit. And I don't want to say all interviews you have to be suited, because that, this day and age, you don't have to have a suit and a tie for all interviews. So we're talking about the average interview. So, but again, even if you don't have to wear a shirt and tie, you still should be neat and you should be confident, and everything. I mean, I know this shouldn't count, but I know I came in one time and a guy, his hands was just filthy, and it was a technical job that he was applying for. I didn't grade him down for it, but I noticed it, and it kind of detracted me from listening to him. So I had to refocus to make sure I listened to him. But it was a distraction because his hands were there. Maybe it just came from working. But again, knowing your dress, knowing your appearance, and your perseverance before talking to people. And one of the things I would say is just tell your story. Practice telling your story of who you are and sell yourself. So that's how I feel about interviewing. But again, it's a skill and you have to work on it.
You're right. And let me ask you this question before we move to number 8. Tell me a little bit about your background after you retired out of the military. What'd you do, and why am I sitting here talking to you? Because
So once I got out of the military, I was a DOD contractor. I ran out of 20 years. I ran out, so I was done. So I was a DOD contractor, and I worked on a project where we were for personal property. So I was hired as a subject matter expert, and we worked for the Army at that time. and I can't think of the organization, but worked for the Army. So they hired me as a subject matter expert, and we were developing the next level of the defense personal property system. And so I brought a lot of information to that field. And so I then it kind of morphed into information systems management. I started testing, for software testing. We started writing requirements. I'm like, how did I get here? So I was up in DC for about 8 years working with the Army on this system, and kind of became an expert in that particular area. Then BRAC happens, and then
What is BRAC?
BRAC is a base realignment.
Okay.
And so a base realignment came, and the organization moved out to Scott Air Force Base, Illinois. So I hung around DC for a while, but then I finally moved out to Illinois with that contract. So I worked out there for about 2 years, 3 years, 2 more years, and then I finally went into the Navy, the DoD Navy as a GS, or went over to the Kingdom of Bahrain. So I stayed there for 9 years, and then I moved over to Fort Belvoir, and I retired out of Fort Belvoir. So
Right. So I just wanted to highlight your career,
Right.
As far as that's why we're talking. That's where we get this knowledge from, because of what we've done.
absolutely.
And to let everyone know, Gerald made it to the GS-14 level, which is, there's only 15.
Right.
So that's why we're sitting here talking. Let's talk about financial literacy.
Right.
This is one of my favorite subjects.
Yeah.
Understanding your finances. See, in the military, most people don't know that you have a base salary,
Right.
and then you have something that's called BAS, which is basic allowance for sustenance, which is money for food, and then they give you money for your rent or whatever. BAH, I think is what they call it, for housing. And you put these three together, and that's your salary, right? So when you get out of the military, there is no BAS, there is no BAH. So you have to calculate how much money you think you're going to need to survive on your own. So not only that, here's another thing. In the military, if you're going to stay 20 years, you're going to get a pension.
Used to.
Yeah, used to. Now, there is no pensions, or no one's really, you have to do it yourself. You have to put together your own 401k plan, right, before you get out. And also, another thing that I would suggest, and you can talk about this when you hit this question, your emergency fund. I remember my dad sitting me down when I was in the 7th grade, and he gave me my first financial literacy lesson. So he put all the bills on the table, and he put his check on the table, and he says, okay. He said, you want to be a man? Here's the way it works. This is part of it. He says, get your pen and paper. I was in the 7th grade, so I could add and subtract, right? So I got a pen and paper. He says, okay, write down a total of all these bills monthly, write them down. And I wrote them down, total it up. And then he said, okay, now here's my check. Now this is what I make. Multiply that times 4, every week, you got paid every week. And he says, okay, now take the total of that check, and subtract what I have to pay in bills, right? And then he said, this is what we have left over, to spend on groceries and different things. I said, okay. And he said, but here's the most important part. That what you have left over, you need to put some of that aside for a rainy day. He didn't say emergency fund, he said rainy day. And I said, okay. And he said, son, let me tell you. He said, because, and this is in, I don't know, 1980, maybe, 80-ish. He said, son, let me tell you something. He said, you need to have you at least $5,000 in the bank, say that you can put your hands on, like right now. He said, because if an emergency comes up, you're going to want to fix that emergency real quick. He said, outside of health, $5,000 to get you out of any challenge that you have for the year. And then he said, make sure that once you take that money out for that challenge, your next goal is to put that money back, to get that $5,000 back to where it was. And I said, okay. And I took that with me all the way in. By the time I got in the military, I was like, okay, I need to save $5,000, right? Now, of course, it's more now. Right. So understand this was 1980. So now I would say probably $25,000, right? You probably need to have at least that in your emergency emergency fund, or just think about your bills and 3 to 6 months of that, whatever Dave Ramsey teaches or whatever, have that emergency fund. Now, I thought everybody was taught that.
Right.
When I got in the military, I didn't know that people weren't taught that. I didn't know that people didn't know that.
Right.
So I didn't even feel comfortable saying it around people because I thought, of course, Chris, everybody knows that. Well, no, everybody does not know that. I found out there were people who, at that time, we were writing checks. People didn't understand how checks worked. People didn't understand these financial things that you had to take responsibility for and take responsibility and understand. Now it's worse because now it's 401ks. Now it's the medical you have to pay for when you get out of the military. So all of these things around financial literacy and getting your coach, your mentor, whatever, they should be able to help you with that.
Right. Because
it's a little daunting now.
Right.
But that's my story about financial literacy and understanding a budget, building a budget. You know, all of that is important. If you don't know how to do it, you're not going to learn it on this podcast, but you're going to learn to go figure out how to do it.
Right.
So, Joe, you tell me about your take on financial literacy.
And again, it goes back to the military has so many resources for people, you know, to go through. They have financial advisors. You know, we had some in Alaska you can go to. I mean, in the Navy, I know they have them each command have a financial person where you can go see that and talk to them. Because I remember talking to some of the younger troops and they were like, they called me Mr. B. Mr. B, I was like, okay, how much money are you putting in your TSP? Da-da-da-da. And then they were like, okay. They was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Then I said, wait a minute now, you know you can't touch that money until you're 59. 59? I was like, what are you talking about? I'll be dead. And so they were young, but they were listening.
Right.
But again, that goes to that, they don't know.
Right.
And so having those conversations is the main thing. You got to have those conversations. And Chris, you know, it goes back into, you know, the old adage of pay yourself first. You know, one of my things when I was, especially with a GS civilian, is that I maxed out my DSB. Hey, if I pay it there first.
Right.
So I would say, you know, again, pay yourself first, prepare, and get a financial advisor. You know, I think the biggest thing is not looking at it. Because once you look at it, you can understand it. I mean, now I'm not because I'm definitely not telling you where to put your money, how to put your money. But I think the first thing is look at it. Because I know you and I talked a few years ago about whether you should buy back your time or whether, and you built a spreadsheet. Say, hey, but so the first thing you do, you look at it. And then, but it was advantageous to you, but it wasn't advantageous to me.
Right.
Because, you know, it depends on some factors. But the key was you looked at it and you make a decision. And everyone should make that own decision for where they are. But again, there are the basics that, you know, you have to have your rainy day fund, you know, but you got to pay yourself first. But also there's got to be a balance.
Yeah.
And I think and I won't go into context of what you told me or why you told me this, but I think you'll know when I say you both have to agree. Right. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When you're married, you both have to agree on the financial plan.
Exactly. So, and again, that's, you know, it's an inside joke, you know, you and I were talking, but it's critical. You both have to agree. And if you agree, then, you know, that's I'd say that's 75% of the battle.
Oh, agreed. Agreed. And building that nest egg and making sure you understand how that works before you get out of the military makes it easier once you do get out.
Absolutely.
Next, we're going to talk about health. That's a big one, right? You have to know it and keep up with it. Now, I know on a previous video I talked about, you know, get up and going to the gym. That's one thing. But as you get older, there's other things. Because I'm going to take some of your fire. Because in the military, they tell you when to go to the doctor.
Yep.
And if you're sick, you know, if you go in to work sick and you can't perform, they'll send you to the doctor.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we were also talking yesterday about how it's funny in the military, there's only 3 places you can be. So if I was your supervisor, either you're at work, you're on leave, or you're at sick call. That's the only 3 places you can be, right? So, and you have that mindset. So when you get out of the military, you can be at work maybe today, maybe not. You know, you can go get your checkups. Maybe you can go get them. You don't have to. Nobody's gonna force you, right? So that's another level of responsibility that, especially if you've been in the military 20 years, you have to understand that now it's your turn to pick that up. And for me, I started getting my blood tested for, just like you go to get a normal blood test. 10, 15 years ago, I started saying, well, I'm gonna get my own blood test, because I don't want to just get a test once a year. And then if you forget, it can be 18 months or 2 years sometimes before, because no one's gonna call you to say, hey, Chris, it's time to go to the doctor. So I started getting my own tests. You know, I started researching about if my cholesterol was a little high. I want to know why. I want to know, I want to know everything about cholesterol. Because if I'm going to take a pill for it, I want to know everything about it. I started doing a whole bunch of research on everything medical that was pertaining to me. That way, when I go in to talk to the doctor, it's not a one-way conversation. When I go in to talk to the doctor, it's me telling him what's wrong and asking him, hey, what about this? I read this. I'm reading some of the same books he's reading, you know, because it is a private practice. He's practicing, right? And I want to help him practice on me. And my dad would always tell me, he was like, son, you want to get an old doctor too. And I didn't know, you know, I just thought he was, you know, joking at the time. But here's the thing, an older doctor has seen more.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? So I look at all of these little things, and as far as this topic that we're talking about, health, when you get out of the military, PT, the military force PT, you know, you have to do that. We didn't have to do much in the Air Force, you know, not like the other services, but we still had to do it. All of that stuff comes back to you, and it's your responsibility. And if you have discipline for some of those things, you'll be okay. If you don't, then it's a hard road. So that's my take on health, Gerald. What about you?
So, so shout out to the VA. I mean, I am advocate for the VA. They are taking care of me, my health, they reminders. So I have to do a shout out to the VA. So you hear so many war stories. So that's just my story. So shout out to the VA. And I'm a little older than you.
Yeah.
So I think I've been older than you for a few years. So constantly remind me. But you know, we talked about a lot of topics today, but this is the foundation. Health is wealth. I mean, you can prepare for resumes, you can get confidence, you can get a job, you can have your money, but if you don't have your health,
you ain't got nothing.
It means nothing.
Yeah.
So my story was, when I got out of the military, it was, okay, I'm out. Where are the burgers? I ain't got, because you know, we had weight standards,
right?
You know, and and so it was like no more weigh-ins. And I felt it. I mean, I felt it in every aspect of my life. I mean, it was I had to go through a transformation myself, because I was like, hey, I didn't get a dental reminder, but you got to go. So, and it took that self-reflection to say, hey, Gerald, you got to take ownership of your health. Yeah. And that's my role to get to where I am today, as far as my mindset, you know, not who I am, but what I am, my mindset. And, you know, health was that main foundation, you know, walking, the food you eat, and things of those nature. So, using a dietitian. You know, the military has all those sources for you. Use them, because you will need them as you transition. Now, I mentioned earlier, on the edge of that transformation, it's going to be chaotic. You're going to be, I don't know what I'm going to do. I listen to Chris and Gerald podcast, but I still don't know what I'm going to do. And you worry, because you worry about, are you going to have enough money? What about my health care? You know, what about my family? What if, you know, if I do I have enough saved? All those things will come in your mind, you know, as a military member. And so what sometimes we do, we lose focus and we worry about it. So, I threw myself into work. I was like, hey, I gotta work, I gotta build my reputation, I gotta find my way. And then I let that health slide. But it caught up with me because when things didn't go the way they were, and I wasn't as sharp in my mind, so I had to take a step back. As they say, I went out, went away, and I came back and found out who I was. When I say went away, I'm meaning that I had to understand that I had to take care of myself first, physically, mentally, and spiritually, before I moved on to the next level or next purpose, which brings us why we're here today. Right. So health is wealth. Take care of your health. Use the resources that you have. Go to the doctor. Like you said, Chris, take ownership of your health. I mean, they are private practitioners, but they might see 15 people a day. And I know they appreciate, not coming in as Dr. Google, but coming in and understanding your own body. You understand, like I think you mentioned to me the other day, you was like, look, I took something and maybe I feel a little different. Maybe I have to go back and check because I introduced something differently to my body. So you know what works for you. And that's key when you talk to your provider because they always know that. And like I said, my VA, they are taking care of me. So I got to get a shout out to them. So use the VA.
There you go. So lastly, and this is a topic that we came up with in the last 5 minutes before we hit record.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you came up with the right verbiage for it though. We were searching for a term, but you came up with the right term.
So the last thing, and I think this is what gets a lot of people because they lose this when you get out of the military, especially sometimes you get out of the military and you say, okay, well, I'm gonna go live over here because this job is over here in this different state.
Good point.
Well, and we're so used to moving around, we're thinking, oh, I can go live anywhere. Right. But what happens is in the military, and let me give you the term first. The term is sense of belonging, right? And a sense of belonging is when you're in the military, no matter how good or how bad it gets, you're part of something. You're in a city normally on your Air Force base or on the Air Force. A lot of them are in cities. And even if it's a small town, you're part of something different from that town. Right. There's people in that town or that city, they don't know what goes on through those gates. So you have a little tribe that we kind of take care of each other. And I'll give you an example. So when you're in the military, and everybody talks about this, we go from one base to another base to another base. Here's what you don't know. Here's what people don't know about the military. You get to a base, normally your supervisor is your sponsor. You have what's called a sponsor. And it's their job to go pick you up from the airport, to show you the areas of town not to go in, to show you where the base is, where the hospital is, where the grocery store. I mean, because they've lived there for a while, so they know where everything's at. And they'll tell you everything about the base, what time to be to work. I mean, just think about that. You don't think about anything. You don't think about it while you're in the military because it's just normal. And then you get there and you start meeting people in the gym. It's easy to meet someone in the gym because guess where they work? On base, right? You meet somebody at the Burger King on base, or you meet somebody at the BX or the commissary. Guess what they are? Military family. So you're part of something. And if you think it doesn't hurt when you get out of the military, you don't know it's coming. Right. Because it hits you all at once. It's like, oh man, I'm getting out. I got to do my financial stuff. I got to, make sure I'm educated. I got to do all this. And oh, wait a minute. It's just me. If you have a spouse, that's great. If you have a family, okay, it's me. And this is my family. And now we don't have any guidance. If you go work for the big company in town, okay, here's your desk, here's your job. Yeah, but what about, good places to eat? You need to figure that out yourself, So you don't think it's going to affect you that much, but it ends up affecting you because it's like you just lost a whole family full of people. Now, of course, you're going to have people you still keep in contact with, but not like before.
Right.
You know, you just don't have that. So I would tell people just to prepare for that. And what Gerald was talking about earlier was, I guess, the journaling, knowing yourself, and just that emotional intelligence part of it that Gerald's probably going to touch on as well. It's real. Be prepared for it. Do whatever you can to prepare for it. So what do you think about sense of belonging, Gerald?
So on a personal story, got out of the military and like I said, I went up to DC and area, and I was working for a retired colonel, and he saw the frustration that I was having transitioning to civilian. And he pulled me in the office, and Don said, Gerald, what you're looking for, you'll never find. He basically said, you're used to that structure. You're used to, people doing what they say they're gonna do. But he said, you won't find it. And, me, why? And he was like, look, man, get out of my office. So you figure it out.
Right.
But it's real, not belonging to what we call, what you call a tribe. It affects you. It affects the way you think. It affects the way you move. It affects your mood. It affects everything about you. Because we have everything we need. We have a gym right there.
Yep.
We have a housing office. We have anything we need on that base. We got it. We got financial advisors. We got our own clinic. We got our own dentist. We got everything we need.
Banks.
We got banks. We got everything we need. We have right there. So when we transition outside the military, and it's there in the community. I'm not saying it's not there, but it's not in one area.
Right.
And then we're not all speaking the same language.
Yep.
Because that language is key too. Because I'm speaking acronyms and I want Roger that. No, that's not what's going to happen when you get outside. So that sense of belonging, it affects how you move forward, out of the military. So the question is, how do you deal with that? You build up those skills that you need, that network, outside of the military. So you start, like I think you said, Chris, you want to focus on the preparedness. And I say, yeah, I'm focused on more of the people that's already at the edge. So if we know that sense of belonging is a real thing, is tangible. We're not just making this up because, people who listen to us, they'll say, oh yeah, I felt the same way. So let's talk about two things. What can you do to avoid it is you prepare. Like Chris is saying, you got your target date, you're leaving, you start building that network. You start getting your outside providers, your TRICARE or wherever you need. You start reaching out to them sources. You figure out where you're going to live and you get involved in that community. You know where your children's schools are. You start doing those things, prepare. Now, let's just say you don't do that and you're sitting there and you're dealing with the self of belonging. Keep going. It's going to be okay. Because right now you're in a comfort zone. It's only thing that's stopping you now is fear, and false evidence appearing real. It's not real because you still have the skills that you need to succeed. So what I say is keep moving forward, prepare one day at a time. You're standing there at the edge of transformation. So now you still got to take that step forward, and you still have the skills. Start building that network one conversation at a time. Yes, listen to YouTube. Yes, go out and seek advice, but just do something every single day to help that transition easier. And it's just like any muscle. It will build.
Right.
And it will get comfortable and you're like, oh, okay. It's not that bad. Oh, I met a contact over here. Okay. So that's how you do that job. That's how you get over that lack of sense of belonging.
Right.
And there's a lot of veterans groups out there too. The people belong to the VFW. But again, targeting it to your specific career is easier if you talk to people in that career that and where you want to be as far as a mentor.
Right. And I agree with everything you said, man. This has been a wonderful conversation. I hope this video helps some people that are about to get out of the military or that's in the military. Maybe you're going to get out in 5 years. It doesn't matter. But the bottom line is these are things that you must do to be prepared.
Right.
Now, in our little list, I'll just go through real quick. Emotional intelligence, networking, education, information technology skills, understanding your why, your resume, interviewing without the uniform, financial literacy, health, and sense of belonging. Those are the 10 things that I would work on. Hey, my name is Christopher Houston. I've been sitting here with Gerald Bridges. Thank you very much. Good night, and God bless.